when a community sours like that, it can go really bad really fast. And, to the Coca-Cola example, you can't really impact the share price of Coke by getting on Twitter unless you're, a major investor. But in general, you can't have any impact. But if 50 of you get into a Discord and start creating all the FUD, when we're FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you get in there and start, that takes life of its own, and you'll see the value of whatever that project is drop precipitously if that happens.
Welcome to this River Community Session with Jeff Funnekotter. He's a content strategist, writer, and branding professional and has community experience in the Web3 space.
Well, Jeff, I wanted to talk with you. I mean, these live sessions are pretty open, talking about a lot about startups and community. It doesn't have to be that specific. I was really interested in talking to you about your Web3 community experience because I too am a person who finds myself in the Web3 space, not on purpose. Hey, Kate, thanks for joining. We were just sharing places we've been that we love, and we're about to chat with Jeff.
Awesome. I was listening in. It took a minute for me to get into this link.
Oh, I know. We're
great to be here.
We'll see if we like StreamYard versus Zoom. We'll see. But yeah, so Jeff found himself in a kind of Web3 community space, and I also am finding myself in one. And there's definitely some culture shock learnings. So that's kind of something we're going to talk about a lot. But I'd love to hear, Jeff, just more specifically about this project you did with Tim
Sure.
and how that all happened.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, thanks for chatting with me. I know we didn't do any pre-questions and all that, so you're getting very live, raw information here, but I did prepare a couple notes anyway, and I appreciate you. After speaking to David Spinks, you're kind of going from the majors to Class A baseball here, so I do appreciate you.
No, I just well, first of all, people with I found over the course of my career that there are so many valuable people, and it has nothing to do with if you've had a Twitter content strategy that you've been posting regularly to grow your followers. There's just so many.
Or published a book like he has and stuff like that. But
there's so many people who are just myself included. I just haven't really focused on my Twitter or my LinkedIn game, but Apologies, my investor. I worked with Brian Johnson. I know shit. I just don't try really hard to have a lot of Twitter followers. So, and then sometimes I'm I'm liking someone's tweet. And I'm oh, Beth Bezos follows me. Why the fuck does he follow me? I have no idea. I don't know. I'm just saying I don't use Twitter followers as any metric of value, actually.
Okay, good. All right. Well, with my throat appropriately cleared, I'm old school in the NFT space. I joined in 2021, so that's ages ago in the way the crypto world works. I'm by no means a crypto whiz. I got into crypto in 2020, but my experience has been uneven at best. But I've followed along with this project called Proof. I don't know if you know about Proof and Kevin Rose and all that stuff. So I was listening to this podcast. I was a big Tim Ferriss fan. Everything comes back to Tim Ferriss, by the way, always does. But I was listening to Tim Ferriss for a decade now, it seems like. And his book basically got me to move to Amsterdam on a whim and changed my life and all these things.
Oh,
yes, Proof. Yeah.
Wait, can you tell more about that? Because Tim's book also made me move to San Francisco on a whim.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, I love talking about this. I was in Calgary in 2000, for 13 years. But I was a health and wellness entrepreneur, and the 2008 downturn hit at a time where I was doing really well, and then companies stopped spending money on what I was doing because they couldn't justify paying for, my contracts when they're laying off 100 people kind of thing. So I looked around. I didn't want to be there anymore. I had a big breakup, and I was all, sort of searching again. I thought this is a good time to reevaluate things. And a guy that I know handed me the book. He said, "You should read the 4-Hour Workweek. I think you'd really like this." And I think it's the first and last time anyone's just literally given me a book like that. And it opened up all these doors in my brain. It sounds really strange. I didn't really follow his business stuff so much. I wasn't really into 4-hour working and it just didn't compute. But a lot of the mindset stuff just was like fireworks. About, you know, you only live once, and what's the worst case scenario, right? I'm not going to end up in a gutter in Amsterdam with needles in my arm. Like you know, so that book, and this is a very small plug for a very obscure book called A Town Like Paris. But there's a guy named Bryce Corbett who's an Australian writer, and he became a TV personality later on. But I read both books right around the same time that I was in this kind of gray zone. And A Town Like Paris was all about his travels. He went to Paris on a whim, basically. He was an Aussie. He was living in London, I think. And he just details his experiences there. And I had just been for the first time that past summer. I thought, this is incredible. Like this book plus this book are saying basically just go live life. And we grew up in, particularly North America, like university, job, get a home, have a family, whatever it is. Of course, there's many alternative lifestyles as well, but in general, we have that mindset. But Tim's book really just said, you know, what's the worst case scenario, this mini retirement concept, just get out there. So I did it. I put my house up for sale, bought a one-way ticket to Paris. I want to spend some time there, and then settled in Amsterdam. And I have a Dutch background, so it helped a bit. Yeah, so while I was there, and this
Can I ask how old you were when you moved? Because I feel like you were already pretty established. It's not like you just moved when you were 20.
Yeah, no, I'm a boomer in Web3, so I hesitate to say, but I moved when I was 37.
Holy crap.
Okay.
Almost so much more ballsy than when I moved to San Francisco. I don't know how old I was. I'll have to do some math. I was in my 20s, though. Totally different.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was a big deal, but I was single, so it made it easier, and ended up meeting my wife over there. But it was really eye-opening. So to bring that full circle to Kevin Rose, to address the initial Web3 question, for the last number of years, I really enjoyed Kevin's appearances on Tim's show. He would show up every 6 to probably 10 months, and they would have interesting discussions. Kevin had a podcast called Modern Finance as the crypto boom started, and it was remarkable because he kept on having these discussions and he bringing up artists and all these things in the sort of the nascent world of NFTs that 2-3 weeks, a month later, would just skyrocket in value. So I thought this guy's onto something. So when he said he was launching this proof project, and this is all going to go very sideways in a moment, I'll tell you. I thought, I'm in. So late November, I think 2021 is when it happened. And I was one of the few people around the world. I think he had 1,000 passes where you could mint a proof pass. And I got one. And it absolutely skyrocketed. It went from what I paid was like 4,000 or I think $5,000 Canadian, up to, no joke, at its peak, I think it was 400,000 US. And this is in 4 or 5 months. And this is part of it. Was going to be a 36-month project. So I thought, oh God, this is incredible. You know, we sold off a few of the smaller assets that they had spun off. So we made sure that we were up. But what's called, you know, if you're familiar with round tripping, like so many other people, I round tripped it. But there were so many learnings in there before it collapsed in terms of community and that kind of thing that I just, I started, you know, I have a marketing background, I have a public speaking background, I have all these things that start to coalesce. And I saw these mistakes, but also the power of these community things that were happening within the Discord for proof, and these super smart people who were just dropping in resources. And really, it was like an MBA in crypto and Web3 in the first 4 or 5 months. It was staggering, really bright people, really funny people. It was just like, wow, this is the coolest bar I've been. I kind of found my tribe in a way, you know?
Wow.
So that was the beginning of it. And then things, you know, I've gone very south with proof, and I wouldn't speak very highly of Kevin right now at all, but different topics. They misled a lot of people and all these things, but some of it was out of his control. I'm sure he didn't anticipate a $9,000% increase in the price. You know, it kind of exploded of its own accord as well. So, but but the community lessons were big. So, well, sorry, it's a long answer, but that's how I got started in NFTs. And then I'll tell you.
For anyone listening, can you define round tripping?
Yes, that's basically when you buy an asset, particularly in it can be a stock as well, but it's more commonly, I guess, in the Web3 world. But you buy a token or an NFT project, it shoots up in value, but you don't sell. You take the round trip and you end up back home right where you started, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
So, but it's quite common, but it's, yeah.
Super interesting. So I can share a couple of things my initial impressions of having Web3 users. So I've been on the fence about like how open I want to be about this, but this is the truth. I started all in meetups to get away from crypto boys in Miami. I moved to Miami. I was going to these tech meetups, and it was just like everyone was like trying to sell me Bitcoin or trying to sell me a boat. And I was just like a little fed up with it. And then there was just this kind of like, it just felt like a lot of the people in crypto were very like not into fundamentals, but like very arrogant. And part of this is just Miami too. Like I remember one guy, he had a crypto type business, and he like just mentioned like, oh, we're going to run out of money in 2 weeks. So if I don't close some fundraising, I'm gonna have to lay everyone off. And I was like, oh, like, well, what are you doing at this party then? Because like the meetups in Miami are like parties. It's like very club vibes. There's like a DJ, you can't hear anyone talking, and it's like cocktails and stuff. And then he was just like, oh, well, I'm the face of the company. And I'm like, he's like, I'm the CEO, so I'm the face of the company. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm the CEO of my company too, but I like do work and stuff. Like he could feel the jab. And then he was just like, oh, well, what's your burn rate? And I was like, oh, we're profitable. And then he said, well, what are your monthly expenses? And I was like, oh, do you, it just made me realize that like he hasn't driven any revenue. So like the entire way he measures like the volume of his business is how much money he's spending versus how profitable he is. And I was just like, okay, like that was just kind of like the snapping moment for me when I was like, I gotta meet other people. Like I can't just keep coming to these like weird Miami tech events where it's just like all crypto or no one has like a real business that they're running. Like I need to meet like real business people. So I ended up starting all in meetups because of that. And now our biggest community is Web3 and all my investors are Web3. It's just like, oh shit, what do I do?
Yeah. Well, the trick there is, and you've already got it, is there's so many crypto bros and so much hype. And as soon as I see bro in a Discord, I almost close it. And like, the thing is it's like mining for gold. Like there's a 95% nonsense and hype and BS and frankly, assholes in the space. But the 5% are really forward thinking, very helpful, supportive, smartest, like really, really smart. They're looking, that expression where they're looking around corners, those are the ones that you just have to gravitate to and then filter out the rest through your gold penning, basically. That's probably what you found as well. So.
Yes, and I'm finding that. And it's like some of my favorite people are in Web3 and some of my least favorite people are in Web3. And it's just like the whole spectrum. Right. And, I've been working pretty closely with like Akshay BD, who is on the Solana Foundation, has close relationship with Balaji. And like he has just, the number of times he's just like blown the back of my brain off because he has some crazy big idea. And I'm like, oh man, like I gotta chew on this, but then I've also gotten hate mail from people in the Web3 space who like, cause they got denied from hosting. And like, I'm pretty sure my other business is like under a small scam attack right now from someone in Web3, it's just like, it's just like I brought a lot of upside, but also a lot of pain. And then there's also like norms, like no one wants to reveal their identity, which makes it very difficult for vetting hosts. But I'm like, you're going to meet in real life. Like they're going to see your face.
So and that's part of the maturing of the space, I think, is revealing your name. That's one of the fundamentals of dealing honestly with people, especially in person as you're facilitating. Like, I'm not going to go meet Surf Dude 6969. I'd rather go
right. Well, I was going to wear Mickey masks when we get there. Like, what's happening? Yeah. And then I'm in all these Telegram chats because the whole like world runs on Telegram. The whole Web3 world seems to run on Telegram and like Discord channels, and everyone has like NFTs as their face and like as their profile picture and no real name. And I'm like, my face, like Rae from River. I just feel like I just feel like the tallest person, I just feel like an ogre in these Telegram groups, but I also like, I need people to know who I am. And like, I want them to know who I am, but it's been a trip.
I can imagine. Did you, and I don't know how much we are chatting with Kate and Ezra here, but I don't know how, because you're running the show here. So I wanted to see, are you guys involved in the space right now as well? Do you have any particular things that you're following or doing or projects that you're involved with?
Me, no, not in particular yet, but I work with people that build in community in Web3, and just hearing it much more frequently, being involved in communities. So I'm trying to get educated and understand the space and how Web2 users and organizations eventually make this jump to Web3 and don't get left behind, right? Because it seems like there's some amazing tools and functionality and possibility with DAOs and decentralization that, and some things that aren't working in Web2. So really interested in the conversation.
Okay.
How about you, Kate?
I don't really know anything about Web3, just from what entrepreneurs have been talking about a little bit. So yeah, I'm just excited to listen in and learn more about it.
Jeff, do you have a good definition for Web3?
Gosh, I did a while ago when I was preparing another presentation. Basically, the word decentralized is probably the key word, but it's a decentralized way of running your own business, your own community, in a sense, your own life, that no longer requires a central provider like a Facebook, like an Instagram, even like your bank. The umbrella covers, as far as I know, crypto and NFTs, and then you'll hear DeFi and all the other little sub things, but basically crypto, NFTs, and a bit more individual control of the way you monetize yourself, of the way you interact in the world. You don't have to rely on, if someone changes, my wife has a flower business and she's heavily reliant on Instagram, but if she's not posting enough and that kind of thing, Instagram can basically just shut her down. And if you hear Tim Ferriss talk, his most valuable, he's actually talked about this at length on his podcast in different episodes, but you can just, if Facebook changes the algorithm or whatever overnight, you lose everyone or 90% of your audience. So his most valuable thing is his email list, right? But for small players like us, Web3 offers opportunity. I can hang up a shingle. I can put my Ethereum and Solana address if people want to tip me or subscribe to, various things I'm going to be offering. So it's a bit more individual. Put up your own shop. I was an entrepreneur before. I used to work in sales, and then I work in communications now, but I also had a 5-year stint on my own business. So it has a bit of that, okay, I own my space and I can monetize it and organize my community as I wish. So that's a very long definition. So,
no, it is. Yeah. I feel like I was living in and among Web3, but I just couldn't put my finger on exactly what it was. But I do think the way I've been thinking about it is anytime you need an intermediary, it's just like, that's Web2.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then anytime you can just like smart contract or just like directly kind of work or interact with someone or someone else with control, then that's probably Web3. Chris Dixon has a great book out called Read, Write, Own. And I haven't
read it. I have not yet read it. Did you go through it?
Yeah, I think that was the bet. And I'm like so bad at regurgitating, like repeating things coherently that I already read. But I think Read, Write, Own is just the best, like brings you along and in understanding. And basically he's breaking down like Web 1 was read. So not very many people had access to posting on the internet. You probably had to know C++ or like, you had to like write code yourself. So very few people were like writing anything to the internet. Primarily, everyone was just reading things on the internet. Then writing became possible. So things like Facebook, you could start posting to the internet, blogs, MySpace, Squarespace websites, all these kind of like no code things started making it possible to write things to the internet. Mm-hmm. I would say he skipped an era, which is maybe an in-between era, and I would call that rank. So at first, if everyone's old enough to remember, like Facebook didn't have a news feed. There wasn't an algorithm. It was literally just like a timeline of what was happening. Then got introduced to ranking algorithms and like gamifying engagement. So now just because you follow someone doesn't mean you're going to see them, because everything's like the algorithm decides for you what you're going to see. So I think he addresses ranking, but I think he could have called it, but it's also, 3s just rings better than 4. Mm-hmm. And then own is the next era. And that is what he's describing as Web3, where you own your data, you own your algorithm, you own your interactions. And, recently, like I know I don't follow all of Tim Ferriss's posts, but I follow all in really closely in some of Twist. And like Jason talked about really early on, like a couple years ago, how like in the future, everyone's going to have their own algorithm. Like, so instead of letting Twitter tell you what you see, and instead of making suggestions for you, you can design that for you. Mm-hmm. And the smallest way I think about it is like in the Google newsfeed, there's no way to turn off sports. Like if I'm going to go to news.google.com, I have to read and I'm scrolling, there will always be a sports section. I don't give a single fucking shit about sports. But
how dare you?
And yet I cannot remove it from the Google newsfeed, Yeah. So it's just like that concept of owning. But yeah, highly recommend Read, Write, Own for anyone who's just like trying to figure out. And then if you're older and trying to figure out the Web3, or if you're really young and you inherently understand Web3, but you don't understand the history of the internet, it's also like very informative history of the internet.
Well, and to that point, to tack on some community lessons, the 1,000 True Fans blog post. Do you know about this? Mm-hmm. From Kevin Kelly and Ezra the Speaker. You might have seen that. I mean, that's almost for me like a community 101 Bible post. Like it's really, really valuable. And I, between that and the Discord thing is really cool. I didn't even use Discord until I got into NFTs. I'm kind of amazed at how I honestly think it's almost like the next podcast, because you can do so much in it. We could have had this call in Discord. We're having one tonight in the TimTim group for we'll get into the Tim Ferriss group that I'm running now, but we're having one tonight where we're getting on video. There's a guy presenting on Farcaster and Base. He's basically bringing our community up to speed on these two things, and people can comment, you can share posts, you can react right away. It's just phenomenal. And one thing I found from the community side from within, well, again, some of the negative lessons I learned within Proof is that it's this double-edged sword in Web3, where the owners of a business are extremely close to the user, right? I mean, if you log on tonight to your Discord family, wherever you are, you're the owner of the business. You're not the CEO of Coca-Cola talking to the guy who just drank a Coke 10 minutes ago, right? There's a lot of layers to get to that person. Yes. Whereas now it's like, okay, I can sit here and I can praise you, I can insult you, I can do whatever, and the expectations are pretty high. So there's that customer intimacy that marketers love to talk about, which is really valuable, but you also need to moderate it. You need to have someone, a little bit of a layer in there to say, okay, your language or whatever you're saying is completely off base, get out of here. There has to be a bit of a buffer there too. So that's part of the community management that I'm learning, and that was absent from some things. And when a community sours like that, it can go really bad really fast. And, to the Coca-Cola example, you can't really impact the share price of Coke by getting on Twitter unless you're, a major investor. But in general, you can't have any impact. But if 50 of you get into a Discord and start creating all the FUD, when we're FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Yeah. If you get in there and start, that takes a life of its own, and you'll see the value of whatever that project is drop precipitously if that happens. So
it's incredible.
Yeah. double-edged sword. So that's why the moderation is so important. And I would say another lesson is to not try and change your community. There's a few evangelists. Yeah, I saw this big time early on, and it's sort of almost a macro discussion that goes beyond what we're talking about here. But if you get in there as a moderator and you want to nurture this community, yes, you have to be responsive, and yes, you have to filter out the bad actors. But to go in there with an agenda, or to say we're gonna, if you have a real life coffee shop and you're in a neighborhood, all of a sudden half your coffee shop is gamers. You're like, I don't want these gamers here. Like, I opened this business and all of a sudden all these guys are talking about Settlers of Catan and Dungeons and Dragons. I wanted like a cool hip hop crowd or something, whatever. I'm just giving a random example.
Yeah.
You could try and crank up the music and drive them out and whatever, but you're much better off nurturing them. These are your 1,000 true fans, right? They're the ones who showed up at your doorstep. And I found that people in communities that they try and change it, or they try and say we're gonna impose a standard here, that the community can speak to you directly. You can see it. Doesn't mean you have to tolerate any nonsense or any ism, any racism, any sexism. Like, you don't need. That's all table stakes. You need to get that out of there. But the more subtle aspects of the community should just be nurtured. They shouldn't just be like, no, I'm going to do it my way. Like, they're giving you direct feedback. Anyway, sermon over.
Yeah, I agree. I have a Slack community for all in people. I don't actually know how many people are in there. I can check real quick, but I don't know. It's like 2,000, maybe 1,000 people. I have to check. 2,000. And yeah, I take a very light hand on things. Like, I'm busy, so I'm like not trying to dictate what the thing is. But it can get really weird in there because it's like a lot of people on like wide political spectrums, especially a lot of smart people talking about markets and startups and stuff. And so people a lot of times will be like, hey, can you create this channel for me? And I'm like, yeah, just make it. It's open. Like, do whatever you want. And they're like, oh, like they're surprised how like open and free it is. Like, you can invite people, you can create new channels, whatever. But then when people are really shitty, they are surprised how hard-handed I am. Where it's like, if 5 people DM me that you're being terrible and you're like being racist, like there's no warnings, there's no community guide. Yeah. You're just fucking out. And then they always leave kicking and screaming, like calling me a fascist and how everything's gonna be ruined.
Oh God.
It never is. It's always fine. But it's like, I'm extremely open until I'm not. And then like the trap door is pulled and you just like, you're gone. Like it's, so yeah. I've also had like, WhatsApp groups have joined. So there's an LA all in WhatsApp group. And then there's like a Miami, I think we had a WhatsApp group, but I think they switched to Telegram or vice versa. Like, I don't know where they are, what they're doing. So there's all these like little pockets that I'm like kind of in, but they all have like their own like leader. And so when I was early on in River, I was trying to figure out how to like make this a business and like pay people so they can eat. And I'd been doing all in meetups for free for like, I've done like 400 events or something for free, all like some on River, some not. And Jason's idea was like, oh, like let's just charge $5 for like the meetup. And then that will like help pay for whatever. And oh my God, the backlash on that, like people were calling me a thief. Like I got like terrible names called. And I just realized that like, wow, this thing is like, it's a mind of its own. Like it's a total beast. It's like, never mind, I haven't taken a salary in 9 months. And the reason you guys all know each other is because I like put in countless hours so you could all be in a community together. But sure, so that was like a lesson of like, it's the tighter you try to control it, like the less control like you'll have over the group.
Yeah, you can't get into the Miami group and say, hey, you guys start talking about LA more. You got to just let them be the Miami group. And then when the time is called for it, you do bring down the hammer if there's any. It's the kind of don't be a dick is a pretty easy.
It's easy to understand. But like, yeah, the LA, like I don't even own the LA WhatsApp group. So like someone else owns that. Like I have no, like they could kick me out, like It's like it totally has its own like factions basically. And I think most people like acknowledge and respect how much work I've put in or whatever, but I've also learned that like sometimes like a thing that I thought was like a no-brainer decision like totally backfired, and it's like, oh yeah, they'll let you know.
But yeah, you build up a callus pretty quickly, I think.
I'm working on it. My husband is like, you should have played more video games growing up because you would be completely immune to all of this.
Right.
I at the beginning, I was just like, oh my God, someone on the internet doesn't like me.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Which now I'm getting, it happens a lot more. Like when we first onboarded some Web3, like a Web3 community, oh my God, like the critiques were just brutal. Like, this app is trash. It's just, whereas like the Tim crowd is so easygoing.
The Tim Ferriss crowd, yeah. Well, so that's another, if you want to segue into that, I got asked to co-start this Discord. If anybody here knows Tim's NFT project called Cock Punch, it's always a bit embarrassing to say it, but he created this rooster-based warrior thing of NFTs that he raised almost $2 million for his psychedelic research foundation for veterans and depression and what have you. So he launched this NFT project to raise money for that. Cool. And one of the friends that I've made, I made some great friends in Web3 through these communities. And one of them is a fellow in near Austin who said, hey, I know you're a big Tim Ferriss guy. Do you want to start up a Discord? Because he has no interest in doing it. So we started up the unofficial Tim Ferriss Discord, and it was centered on to coincide with the release of this NFT project. But it also has, the good thing about Discord is you can create all these channels, right? So we have health channels, we have AI, we have book channels. We discuss his podcast episodes and some others. And you can have discussions in each one of those completely unrelated to his NFT thing. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be, you don't even have to own one right now to get in.
Is this the TimTim fans?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the Discord
I'm in there somehow.
Yeah, and we moderated it. And so anyway, what we did was, because Tim steered away from it because he'd heard of all this vitriol that you've experienced, and everyone just sits there on a keyboard and lashes out. So he's, I don't want, like, why bother with any of that bullshit? So he actually got wind of what we were doing, and he became a fan. So he's now part of it, and he pops in periodically, and he's given us a few goodies. We get sneak peeks on a few things that he's rolled out, and his coffee product and this kind of stuff. So it's grown from there, and it turned into the point where I was at South by last year and got to meet with Tim at his place.
Amazing.
3 people, and all of a sudden I'm meeting, a guy who's changed I don't know how many people's lives, including mine, through his writing and that kind of thing. And we're sitting in his kitchen/living room. He's making up a brunch for us. It was really cool.
Wow, so, that's amazing.
Yeah, so that community thing, but it all came because I became friends with a fellow by the name of Zach, who approached me with the idea to start this Discord, right? Who I never would have met. So the community thing is really quite strong. And one of the other things, again, for Ezra that you're probably picking up is that you can also, aside from the moderating aspects that Rae and I already talked about, you can also really leverage the brains within your community very easily. So tonight, this talk in our Discord is being run by one of our members. It's got nothing to do, he knows all about Farcaster and base and NFT art and all these other things. So he's running it. He's doing it voluntarily. We've had really bright submissions, whether it comes to some of the writing that Tim has done for his project to whatever. You just leverage your community. And that's one of the other things I saw from Proof is that for the first, and this is very Web 2-y, so any project has a little bit of warning signs when you see a lot of sort of big names from the Web 2 space, is often they don't quite get that they're the new guys in the room. And a lot of the community members actually know better how to speak and interact and that kind of thing. Whereas, so in Proof, they didn't listen to the community for the first probably 8 months until they were like, holy shit, we better start listening because people are dropping like flies. The prices drop like crazy. because we've been saying, listen to this, do that, and not in a, and again, not in a super bro-y, there was not, it was that kind of thing. It was just more like, we know the space, here's what we can do, here's how you can help us, all these kind of things. And they said, no, we know better. We're going to try and shoehorn you in this direction. It didn't work.
Yeah.
It works really well when you leverage your own people that you've got inside your tent.
I see the same thing with River, because the question investors ask is like, well, how do you find hosts? I'm like, no. The problem isn't finding hosts. The problem is gently rejecting hosts so that they don't get so mad and send me death threats. That's the problem. Because people really want to contribute. People have so much creative energy. They just want people to show up to their meetup or, join their live session or whatever they're doing. And, by working within this wider community on River, you're not guaranteed people to show up to your event, but the chances are a lot higher than just building your own attendee list. But it's like an ocean. I don't know. It's like a wave. It's very difficult to like meticulously control. You can try to like create virality or like pick a good time that would be like vibes. But I don't know, sometimes like for no rhyme or reason, something hits and something doesn't. And it's like extremely hard to know like what's going to resonate. And then I also just find like there's a lot of competition for attention and time and space. And people often don't even give feedback. They just leave or they stop coming. And yeah, you kind of have to be like very attuned to those movements because people don't always like act rationally or do all the steps you think that they're going to do. Yeah. Very, very interesting. And I'm experiencing a little bit of the same thing that you're talking about, like big names. I'm in the middle of raising my pre-seed round, and it's pretty much only Web3 people that are primarily interested in River. And, I had a meeting with Roloff at Sequoia because it was in a one-on-one meeting. It was a group meeting, part of the Launch Accelerator is in. And I distinctly remember him saying like, careful taking on too many Web3 people early on. And it's like, well, seem to be the ones who are most thinking most creatively about how we could organize ourselves. They're the ones who move faster, who have more energy around new ideas. Like, I don't know, I feel there's this chasm.
Well, they're also probably the ones who are craving in-person interaction, right? They've been in these Discord groups. They've found kind of their tribe, which is a cool feeling online. And now you actually want to shake hands and break bread with these people. So they're probably, they see the value. They see the value in that. Yeah,
for sure. But I've gotten a lot of like tisk from some people, and and then some people are just inherently uncomfortable with River because it's like, well, they want to, some customers, potential customers, they want to try one event, and I'm like, we're gonna fail. Our UI is not as good as Luma's, and you're not going to feel the power of like moving your whole audience. So we won't even do that anymore. It's like the minimum is 10 events to like even try anything with us, because otherwise you're just not going to feel the magic and you're going to churn, and we're going to spend all this energy trying to get with with you.
Can you explain the 10 events versus one? Like for Tim Ferriss, you do the one event, right? Or is that considered?
Oh, that was 180 events.
Oh, okay. So you're taking the actual, what's that? Okay.
Like, so I would consider that like a series, but like, it would be like Tim saying, hey, I want to celebrate my 10th anniversary, but only with a meetup in Austin.
Right. I gotcha. Okay.
And you're just like, okay, well, the whole point is that like it's geolocated and people can just join the thing that's nearest them. So sending your whole audience to the River page, but they can only go to an Austin event is like a huge waste of fucking time. Like we can do, so Tim Ferriss launched, and then 3 weeks later we had 180 events. If you give it some threshold, like let's say, at least 8 people were there, then it's 150 events. Like it's an insane number. But if you're kind of a chicken shit and you just want to try it with like 1 or 3 events, we're like, sorry, we're going to not impress you because our UI isn't as good as Luma's. And then you're just going to like think badly of us. And then you're going to let all your fans down because they're going to be like, okay, so there's these 2 events I can't go to because I don't live near them.
Right.
So yeah, we're kind of like, you got to go all in with us or not.
No pun intended.
Yes. I mean, we'll try 10 events for you, but like, even that's kind of lame.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a huge audience, why deprive everyone of the joy of meeting someone that they could have some magic with? It's like kind of rude, actually.
Interesting. It is. Yeah. Good point. Did you have any other burning community questions?
Yeah. I mean, what are you working on now? So I know you're doing the Tim Ferriss Discord, but like what's next for you? Are you totally turned off of NFTs? Are you trying anything else?
Yes. The NFT space is pretty dismal right now, and for good reason. It was always a bit of an empty, money-making space for most of us. There's some cool art on there, but the underlying technology is really cool, and there's all kinds. Like I said, the people who are still in the space, if you filter out the 95% of the yahoos, the other 5% are still very forward-thinking. And I think if there's going to be an eye on the next big thing, which actually has been AI for the last 12 months, at least within our groups, you're going to get some of the most cutting edge or up-to-date information by hanging out with these communities still. But I'm going to keep on with the Tim group. His project is launching. He's dropping a whole bunch of new stuff apparently sometime soon. I don't know exactly when, related to his project. So that usually brings with it a surge of interest.
Cool.
I'm definitely not making my living in Web3. So that's, I'm still, doing writing and communications for corporate clients and for websites and that kind of thing. Maybe a kid's book. First draft has been offered. So that kind of all in the writing space. But
wow.
Yeah, so Web3, it's for me right now, it's in a bit of a weird space. I don't know if you guys know about meme coins are big. So people are either making or losing their riches on ridiculously non-useful tokens in the crypto space. So it's not a great time. But keeping a toe in the space, keeping tabs with some of the key people, that kind of thing is probably the best way to stay out. Okay, this is actually the next really cool thing that has legitimacy to it. So it's keeping my antennas up, my radar up, but I'm not investing hours and hours a day in the space just because it's not filled with fulfillment at the moment, put it that way.
Can you tell me more about Farcaster? So I am on it technically, but I've been like having a hard time grokking it. I only went on it because my friend Taylor, who came to my all-in women's brunch, which is like how all-in meetups even started in the first place, she like tweeted about it last fall and was like, Balaji's hosting like a text AMA on Farcaster. So if you ever wanted to get in front of Balaji with not a lot of competition, because there's not a lot of users on there, this is your best chance. So I was like, okay. And like download the app, find this AMA. And like, I asked my question and no one liked my question. So I didn't think it was going to get answered. But the question was like, how are you bringing the network state ideas from the conference, like out into the world? Are you going to do any IRL meetups to like help drive these concepts forward? And he said, despite no one liking my comment, he replied saying, yes, it's actually the top 3 things that's most important to me. If you want to be involved, get a Luma account. And I was like, I've tried Luma and I have a better idea for you. And that's how I met Balaji. But since then, I haven't like figured out what Farcaster is and like why I'm there.
Okay, well, I'm going to sorely disappoint you. That's actually why I'm getting on this call tonight in our group. So I know you're part of that TimTim Discord group.
Yeah, maybe I'll try to join. Although I have a dance team practice, so I don't think I can make it. But
okay, wait, we should be having. I can send you the presentation afterwards. Anyhow. Okay, we'll post it. But so I know very little. I know that it's shown potential before. There was a monetization aspect to it, so you could actually. I'm not going to embarrass myself. I know very little. What I do know from a communication standpoint, and maybe I'm hypercritical, is that Farcaster was very much an engineering. It was, the devs, as we say, built it, and I was amazed at how bad the language was. They made it so opaque and obtuse so that you couldn't. It's not your fault that you don't understand it. And like I would tell the guys that you need a comms guy, you need a comms girl, you need someone in there who can translate. They're talking about casts instead of tweets. So they're trying to redo some of the language that we've all become familiar with through Twitter.
Okay, yeah.
There's all kinds of things about, and again, I say I won't embarrass myself. I'll be much more conversant after tonight. But they have to bridge, and this is a big thing in Web3, is there's a lot of smart people who are really interested in the tech, and they need a link to the marketers and the communication people who can actually translate to the broader world. Otherwise, it's always going to remain very niche and clubby. And I think that's part of what Farcaster's problem is. It hasn't quite launched like people thought, but in the last few months, it's had some very good spikes of popularity and usage. So I don't think it's by any means finished, but Twitter's still the king of the social space, but they're doing more things. They're interested on the tokenization and the finance side that's worth paying attention to, because I say tune in tonight if we can. But I will at least RSVP, so I'm like on the recording list or something. Because I'm like, in some ways I'm like maybe like a baller Farcaster user, because I got Balaji to invest $50,000 in my startup by one message. But then every time I'm like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing on here. But I feel the same way about Discord. Like, I get very overwhelmed by Discord. I'm in Discord, but I'm just like, I feel like I'm pinged and I don't know where I'm pinged and I don't know where my DMs are. And this is part of the decentralization problem, right? Because our attention is finite. I mean, we've got families and lives to lead. All of a sudden, you don't want to be on Twitter. You don't want to have a Twitter personality, a Telegram, a Farcaster, a Discord. It's too much.
I mean, I'm on all those, and I get DM'd constantly on every channel, and I want to die, but I'm also trying to run a company.
I don't think it's sustainable, right? I mean, one or two of the things has to emerge as, I think, a bit of a category killer at some point, because people just don't want to live that way. You don't want to have 10 different accounts. And you got Slack and you got Instagram. It's and
absurd. Telegram and WhatsApp and like all of the investors, it's all happening on Telegram. Mm-hmm. Like, if my mother saw my job and like I'm in Twitter DMs and I'm in Telegram groups, and like, this is not me, blowing off work. Like, I'm working. I'm in Telegram working.
I'd explain the same thing to my wife. She would come into the room and I'd be on the Discord screen. But I've got 3 or 4 clients, good clients from the Web3 and NFT space in the past 18 months by nurturing these relationships within Discord. So she would come in and think, oh, you're just chatting with the gang again. I said, no, actually, yes, I am, but I'm also, So
no, totally. Anyway. I mean, the reason I got Tim for that 10th anniversary podcast, I replied to his tweet.
All right.
He tweeted, hey gang, like 10th anniversary is coming up. What should we do? Wild and crazy ideas welcome. Mm-hmm. And because, as startup CEO, I'm just like, be on Twitter is one of my jobs. I saw the tweet and I replied quickly. And I think replying quickly was part of why I got his attention. If I had replied, 2 days later, I think the train would have left. But I replied quickly and I said, hey, you changed my life. I read 4-Hour Workweek. I left my job in finance and I moved from Boston to San Francisco sight unseen to break into tech, because like I heard about this Silicon Valley thing from Tim Ferriss. And I would love to host your fans on River as like a full circle moment. And then that tweet got a lot of likes. And then 2 days later, his team found me via email. So it's like, you got to be on Discord, got to be on Telegram, got to be on Twitter, got to be on Farcaster. There's a lot of relationships to be had there, even though it looks like a boondoggle. I know Ezra and Kate did this yesterday, but we'll try it again. I'm trying this Nick Gray tactic where after these sessions, we do a 24-hour reply all email thread so people can introduce themselves and connect if you want. And then last time, David Spinks chose the icebreaker. So what do you think? What do you want to ask? What do you want people to respond to in the reply all?
You're talking to me? Oh my gosh. What do people want to respond to? Gosh,
So David,
give me a hint.
What David Spinks said, what's bringing you the most joy right now? But maybe yours can be, I don't know, something around.
I would say what are you most excited about for the next 18 months?
Mm.
And that could be
Yeah.
can be a technology, that can be a tech, that can be a project, that can be sort of not personal, but I mean, what out there in the world right now is like really grabbing you. I think AI is going to, if it's AI, it has to be a bit more specific. So, you know, AI on this. I'd be very curious what people are looking. I like looking around corners if I can. So I'm sure there's smarter people out there.
Yeah. Looking around corners is the good, or I say like, where's the puck moving?
There you go.
This is like another thing. It's like, yeah, everyone's back there, but going this way. Yeah. Super interesting too, to see, like, I'm sure we all have pockets of friends. Some are more modern than others. But like one of my friends was over for dinner and he thinks it's 30 years until we have like self-driving trucks.
Okay.
And I'm like, nope. I think it's going way sooner than that. And he's like, how do you know? And I'm like, have you been to San Francisco? There's self-driving cars everywhere. Like, but he hasn't seen them because he lives in Boston, you know? So, all right. So where's the puck moving? What are you bullish on?
What are you most excited about?
Yeah.
I hope I said about properly for the American audience.
Yes. Well, I'm sure we understand.